Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
The Wanderer's landing skid screamed against rock, tearing through 5 years of settled ash. Metal shrieked. Something in the engine housing cracked with a sound like breaking bone. Then silence crashed down. Jake sat in the cockpit for a moment, hands still gripped on dead controls. His breath came shallow, measured. Each one cost him something now. He looked down at his hands in the emergency lighting. The nails had turned blue at the edges, darkness spreading into the cuticle like ink in water. Radiation sickness didn't announce itself. It just hollowed you out, cell by cell. 5 years ago, during the ambush here on Xylos, a pulse weapon had punched through his armor shielding. He'd felt the heat lance into his chest, felt something fundamental break. But he'd kept moving, kept fighting, kept his squad alive long enough to call evac, long enough to watch Kaylin fall. He'd made it off Xylos. She hadn't. Now the debt was due. 3 months, the medic said. Maybe 4 if he stayed on the core worlds, hooked to machines. They'd offered him a clean room, painkillers, dignity. Jake had chosen differently. He unstrapped and stood. His joints protested. The cabin smelled like overheated circuits and his own sickness, a chemical wrongness he couldn't name. He pulled on his old combat jacket, worn thin at the elbows. His sidearm hung at his hip, force of habit. Nothing lived on Xylos anymore. The war had sterilized continents. The airlock hissed open. The smell hit him. Ozone, burnt metal, old death. His boots crunched on scorched earth. Ash rose in small clouds, hanging in thin air like ghosts. Xylos stretched before him. The sky hung low and yellow-gray, thick with matter that would never settle. Skeletal war machines jutted at impossible angles. Tanks, dropships, artillery platforms. Some half-buried, others tilted like grave markers. The wind moved through metal bones, creating a low moan that never stopped. Jake started walking. His pack felt heavy. Inside, rations he wouldn't eat, a med kit that couldn't help him, and 2 dog tags on a single chain. One was his, the other was hers. He knew the path, burned into memory like the scars on his chest. Past the command carrier, hull torn open. Past the crater where Martinez had bought them 30 seconds with his life. Past the collapsed bunker where they tried to hold the line. The wind picked up. Jake pulled his collar higher and kept moving. Everything ached now. Legs, chest, bones. The radiation eating away at what held him together. But he'd made a promise 5 years ago. 40 minutes brought him to the place. A formation of melted rock, black as volcanic glass. This was where he'd stood screaming into his comm for evac, watching Kaylin's position turn from green to red on the tactical display. He'd tried to reach her. Martinez had restrained him physically because staying meant dying, and dying meant the mission failed. The mission had failed anyway. Jake fell to his knees. The impact jarred his deteriorating joints, but he barely felt it through constant pain. He reached into his pack with shaking hands and pulled out the dog tags. Metal warm from his body. He could read the engraving without looking. Kaylin Voss, Echo, Phantom Squad. A piece of rebar jutted from the melted rock. Someone's reinforcement, transformed by heat into an accidental monument. Jake hung the tags on it carefully. They clinked in the wind, tiny sound against vast silence. "I came back, Kaylin," he whispered, voice rough, "like I promised." His hand froze. There in the ash beside the rock, a footprint, fresh, bare, human, 5 toes visible. Next to it, fainter, the tread pattern of military boots. Jake's training overrode thought. His hand dropped to his sidearm, thumb releasing the retention strap. He didn't draw yet, remained still, barely breathing, eyes scanning ruins. Looking for movement, shadow, anything out of place. There, 20 meters away behind overturned metal, something moved. Not wind, something alive. Jake straightened slowly. "I'm armed," he called out. "Show yourself." Silence. Long enough he wondered if sickness was affecting his perception. Then, explosion of motion. A figure launched from cover with terrifying speed. Blue skin streaked with grime. Silver hair matted into ropes. feral eyes. Around her neck, a single dog tag, Kaylin. Jake's brain stuttered between recognition and survival. "Kaylin," she answered with a blade, sharpened hull plating aimed at his throat. Jake jerked back, muscle memory saving him. "It's me, Jake!" She pressed the attack. No recognition in those eyes, not the intelligence he remembered. These were animal eyes, wild, cornered, eyes that saw him as threat, not friend. The blade sang through air in a pattern that stopped his heart. Reverse grip, low feint, rising diagonal cut, exactly the combination he'd taught her, the signature move she'd made her own. His body remembered before his mind. He sidestepped, deflected, felt impact shiver through bones. "That's your signature move," he gasped. "The reverse grip feint." And in that split second, as her blade arced upward toward his exposed ribs, time fractured. The transport to Kepler Station, cramped training bay, younger Kaylin focused, sweat on her brow. "Like this?" she asked, demonstrating the combination. Jake watched her form, nodded. "Perfect. That's yours now. Just don't use it on me." She'd laughed, eyes bright with youth and confidence. "No promises, Lieutenant." He'd grinned back. "Fair enough." The memory shattered. She struck. Not with the blade. She shifted weight, used his moment of hope, drove the pommel into his left side with surgical precision. The exact spot where shrapnel had torn through him at Kepler. The spot that still ached. The spot only she knew about because she'd been there, screaming at medics while his blood pooled. White-hot agony exploded through his ribs. Jake's legs buckled. He went down hard on one knee, vision tunneling. Breath left his lungs. Through pain haze, he saw her raise the blade, saw the killing strike coming. At least it's her, some distant part thought. At least that means something. The ground trembled. Not small vibration, genuine seismic shift. Dust and ash leaped. Small debris rattled against metal. Kaylin froze mid-strike. Blade raised. Her body went rigid, head snapping left. Nostrils flaring, every muscle tense in ways that had nothing to do with fighting humans. This was deeper, primal. Prey-knowing predator had arrived. The ground trembled again, harder. Then they came. Two of them burst from beneath collapsed bunker 30 meters away. Explosion of concrete and ash. Xylos Reavers. Jake had seen them once before, during battle, only at distance. Military intelligence classified them as indigenous megafauna. Territorial predators driven to frenzy by warfare. Size of ground vehicles, low, wide, built like living tanks. 6 legs ending in claws that could punch through armor. Bodies covered in overlapping chitin plates like scorched metal. Heads mostly mouth, massive mandibles clicking and grinding like industrial machinery. The smell, rot and ammonia, and chemicals that made eyes water. The Reaver's head swiveled toward them, scenting blood. Kaylin's entire posture transformed. The blade meant for Jake pivoted into defensive grip. She didn't run. She charged. Jake watched from his knees, hand pressed to injured side. She was outmatched catastrophically. 1 Reaver would challenge a full squad with heavy weapons. 2 was death sentence. But she didn't hesitate. Threw herself at the nearest creature with a scream barely human. The Reaver's head snapped toward her, mandibles spreading. Fast, impossibly fast for that mass. Forward claw came around in a swipe that would split her in pieces. Kaylin dove under the strike, rolled through ash, came up slashing. Her blade screeched against armored flank, throwing sparks but not penetrating. The creature bellowed. Sound that vibrated in Jake's chest resonated in bones. It pivoted with horrifying agility, massive rear legs coming around to kick. The blow caught her directly in the ribs. Jake heard impact from 20 meters. Wet, meaty sound of flesh meeting irresistible force. She flew backward, hit twisted metal with sickening crunch, went still. The second Reaver turned toward Jake. He tried to stand. Legs wouldn't cooperate. Pain had spread to chest, mixing with radiation sickness, making thought nearly impossible. His hand found his rifle where it had fallen. Pulled it up, thumb safety. The Reaver approached slowly, deliberately, testing him, determining if prey or threat. Jake's vision swam. He blinked hard, forcing focus. Across the plaza, Kaylin was down, not moving. The first Reaver was turning back to her, preparing to finish it. Jake didn't think, just acted on instinct and training and 5 years of remembering her face. He aimed not at head or center mass, but at very specific point at neck base where armored plates separated during movement. They'd studied these things during campaign, dissected 3 in field lab under fire. He and Kaylin had mapped the nerve clusters, identified vulnerabilities that turned unstoppable killing machine into something fightable. Jake squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked hard. He felt something tear in his chest. The round punched through armor gap into nerve bundle with perfect precision. Effect was instantaneous. The creature's legs locked, rigid nervous system short-circuiting. It toppled forward, momentum carrying it into ground where it lay twitching. The second Reaver stopped, head swiveling toward fallen companion. Jake fired again, not for kill but intimidation. Rounds sparking off head armor like struck bell. It bellowed, stepped back, then turned and fled, disappearing into wreckage with footfalls that shook ground. Silence crashed back, broken only by paralyzed Reaver's mandible clicking and Jake's ragged breathing. He tried to stand, made it halfway before legs gave out, and he sat down hard, impact jarring spine. His chest was fire. He tasted copper, blood, internal bleeding. He just accelerated his own death by weeks, maybe months. But at least, Kaylin. Jake dragged himself toward her, using rifle as crutch. Every meter felt like kilometers. Vision kept tunneling. When he reached her, he collapsed beside wreckage, gasping. She was alive. Unconscious, but alive. Chest rising and falling shallowly. Deep gash on left shoulder, bleeding freely, blue skin made darker by blood. Face turned away, half buried in ash. Jake pulled his pack around with trembling hands. Medkit at the bottom. He dumped contents. Synth skin patches, coagulant powder, painkillers, antibiotics. Supplies meant for his final days, or to save someone's life now. He didn't hesitate. Hands moved through familiar field medicine ritual, even shaking with exhaustion. Clean the wound. She didn't react to disinfectant sting, which worried him. Pack with coagulant powder to stop bleeding, powder fizzing as it reacted. Seal with synth skin, pressing edges until they bonded molecularly. Vision blurred twice. He had to stop, breathe, force clarity. When finished, he had nothing left. Painkillers sat in packets, mocking him with relief promise. He could take them, buy himself hours without bonefire. Instead, he put them back carefully, one at a time. She might need them when she woke. If she woke. Jake leaned back against wreckage, rifle across lap. He should bind her hands. Basic survival. Never trust someone who tried killing you 10 minutes ago. She'd lived here 5 years. Alone. Feral. Probably insane. Dangerous. Unpredictable. A threat. He didn't bind her hands. Instead, he built a fire. Took 3 tries with ignition stick, hands shaking badly. By the time flames caught on dried scrub and old fabric, sky had started descending into deeper gloom. Xylos didn't have proper day-night cycle. Something about rotation and atmospheric thickness. Just variations of darkness. Jake fed fire carefully, keeping it small. Light attracted attention, but cold killed too. He positioned where he could watch both Kaylin and approaches. Rifle stayed within reach, but far enough he'd have to deliberately reach for it. A choice, not reflex. Twin moons rose slowly through toxic haze, casting everything in pale skeletal light, making shadows grow long and strange. Jake's eyes kept trying to close, body demanding rest it couldn't have, but he forced them open. Couldn't sleep yet, not until he knew she wouldn't wake and finish what she started. Medkit lay open beside him, supplies scattered. Among them was small case containing armor repair tools, meant for patching suits in field, but adaptable. He looked at Kaylin, at torn clothing, at makeshift armor pieces assembled from scrap. Some bent, cracked, barely functional. Some bent inward dangerously, edges that could cut her during movement. Jake reached for tools, hands steadier now, adrenaline having burned through, leaving him in that strange hollow space beyond exhaustion where everything felt distant. He selected heat stylus and picked up armor piece bent nearly double. Useless for protection. Dangerous even. He worked slowly, methodically, heating metal and reshaping with careful pressure, smoothing dangerous edges. Small flame of stylus competed with larger fire and slow burn of his dying, but hands remembered work. How many times during war? Fixed armor, patched holes, kept squad functional, one small repair at a time. It was meditative, calming, a way to communicate care when words became inadequate. He didn't know if she'd understand, didn't know if anything left in her could understand anything beyond survival and violence, but he did it anyway. Only thing he could think to do, only language he had left. Time slipped sideways. He finished one piece, started another. Fire crackled softly, small sound of life in vast silence. Wind howled through ruins, making metal skeletons sing endless dirge. Jake didn't notice when her eyes opened. She watched him. He was completely focused on armor plate, turning it slowly in heat, watching metal soften and reform under careful manipulation. His profile thrown sharp by firelight. Hollow cheeks, sunken eyes, blue tint around lips matching fingernails. She could smell death on him, thick and chemical, could see it in how he moved, careful and measured, like every action cost something vital he couldn't afford to spend. He'd killed the Reaver. She'd seen it through pain haze and unconsciousness edge. One shot, perfect placement, to vulnerability that shouldn't be common knowledge. The kind of shot requiring deep xenobiology understanding. The kind she couldn't make anymore, because she'd forgotten how to think beyond next moment, next threat, next meal. But she'd remembered his weakness, the spot on his left side where he'd taken shrapnel. Her body remembered when mine couldn't, struck there with perfect precision. That realization unsettled something deep inside, made her feel like two people living in her skin. The beast that survived 5 years in this hell, and something older, buried, forgotten, something human. Jake set down repaired armor gently and reached for another piece. As he did, hand-bumped medkit and one painkiller packet fell into firelight. He looked at it long moment, jaw working, then picked it up and put it back with others. Movements careful, almost reverent. Kaylin's hand moved slowly, trying not to make sound. She tore a strip of cloth from bottom of already tattered uniform. Fabric parted with soft tearing sound that seemed loud in silence. Jake's head snapped up immediately, hand moving toward rifle with trained speed. She held out the strip of cloth, nothing more. Just offering held in one grimy, blue-skinned hand. They stared at each other across fire. His hand hovered over weapon, muscles tense. Her hand extended offering, unmoving. Neither moved for what felt like eternity, both frozen in moment that could tip either direction. Then Jake lowered hand from rifle, reached out slowly, carefully, took the cloth. There was cut on his cheekbone, dried blood crusted along edge where her blade had come too close during fight. He dabbed at it with cloth, wincing slightly. Blood came away in dark flakes, revealing a braided skin. Kaylin pulled herself into sitting position, moving carefully. Shoulder throbbed with each movement, but synth skin held, keeping wounds sealed. She could feel tightness of it, chemical bonding. Someone had treated her wound while unconscious. Someone had used precious medical supplies on her instead of themselves. She looked at Jake, at his near-empty med kit, at supplies that weren't there anymore. She touched synth skin patch on shoulder with cautious fingers. Looked at him directly. Throat worked, trying to form sounds it hadn't made in years, words that felt foreign in mouth. You... Word came out broken, rough as gravel scraped across stone. She swallowed, tried again. You wasted it. Jake fed another piece of scrub to fire, not looking at her. Wasn't wasted. You're dying. Wasn't question. She could see it in every line of his body, smell it in air between them, feel it like weight pressing down on reality. Yeah, then it was wasted. He looked up at her then, and for a moment she saw past exhaustion and sickness to something harder underneath. Something that hadn't died when body started to fail. I didn't come here to save myself, he said quietly. Words hung in air between them, heavy with meanings she couldn't quite grasp. Kaylin pulled knees to chest, wrapping arms around them. Position made her look smaller, younger, less like feral thing that tried killing him, and more like soldier she might once have been. She stared into fire, watching flames dance. "I don't remember you," she said finally, voice barely above whisper. "But my body does. It knows where you're weak. It tried to kill you there." "I know. That should scare you." "It does." She looked at him again, searching his face. "Then why are you still here?" Jake was quiet for a moment, then reached for repaired armor plate and set it carefully between them. Metal still warm from heat stylus. "Because I made a promise." Kaylin picked up plate, turned it over in hands. Edges smoothed, bend corrected with careful precision. It would protect her again, keep her safe. She set it down carefully like it was something precious and fragile. "I don't deserve—" "Don't!" Jake's voice was sharp, cutting her off mid-sentence. "You survived 5 years on a dead world alone. Whatever you had to become to do that, that's not something you apologize for. I attacked you. You didn't know me. You were protecting yourself. That's not crime. That's survival. My body knew you, knew exactly where to hurt you. And you stopped when Reavers showed up. You chose bigger threat. That's tactics. That's training." He paused, coughed. Cough went on longer than it should, wet and painful. And when it stopped, he was breathing harder, each breath clearly costing him. "That's Phantom Squad." Kaylin's hand moved unconsciously to dog tag around neck. She gripped it hard, feeling engraved metal press into palm. "Phantom Squad died 5 years ago." "No," Jake said firmly. "They didn't." Fire crackled. Wind howled its endless song through metal graveyard. Moons continued slow arc across poison sky, casting shadows that seemed to move with purposes of their own. Neither spoke for a long time. Silence between them filled with things that couldn't yet be said. But something had shifted in Kaylin. The wildness in her eyes had receded slightly, replaced by calculation. Cold, practical. She reached over, movement slow, deliberate, and picked up Jake's rifle, held it across her lap, finger resting near trigger guard. Jake's exhaustion vanished like smoke. His eyes snapped fully alert, body tensing despite pain. "Kaylin!" "Sleep," she said, her voice rough as grinding stone. "I'll watch. You tried to kill me an hour ago. You saved me anyway." She checked rifle's charge with practiced efficiency, keeping muzzle pointed away, but grip firm and ready. "Stupid. You're dying. Wasting your medicine on someone who attacked you. Someone who doesn't even remember your name." Her jaw worked, eyes distant, calculating. "But you're not a scavenger. Not like the others who came looking for scraps. You gave instead of taking. So sleep, or don't. Either way, this stays with me now." Jake understood immediately. He wasn't her ally. He was her prisoner. She didn't trust him, couldn't afford to in this dead world where trust got you killed. But she wouldn't kill him in his sleep either. It was cold survival logic. If he was useful, keep him alive. If he became a threat, she had his weapon. Practical, smart, the kind of thinking that kept someone alive for 5 years alone. And somehow that made sense to him, made more sense than trust would have. She was doing what she needed to survive. That was Phantom Squad training too, buried under years of feral existence. Jake leaned back against the wreckage, his body screaming for rest. His hand stayed near his sidearm. Not threatening, just instinct. He watched her for a long moment, this blue-skinned stranger with Kaylin's face and Kaylin's combat instincts, but none of her memories. "Fair enough," he said finally. "But Echo?" Something flickered in her eyes at the word. Not recognition, but something. "If you're going to shoot me," Jake continued, "at least wait until I can't feel it anymore. I've got maybe 2 months left. 3 if I'm unlucky." The ghost of something, humor? Acknowledgement, crossed her face. Then it was gone, replaced by that feral wariness. Jake closed his eyes anyway. Let exhaustion drag him down into darkness. His last conscious thought was simple. At least I found her alive. Even if she doesn't know me. Even if I'm her prisoner now. At least she's alive. And in the ruins of Xylos, with a stolen rifle across her lap and the dog tags of a dead squad around her neck. Kaylin kept watch over a dying man who had crossed the stars to find her. The sound woke him, a low, thrumming note that didn't belong to wind or settling metal. Wrong frequency, wrong rhythm, mechanical. Jake's eyes snapped open, instinct reaching for his rifle before conscious thought engaged. Then he remembered. Kaylin had it. The fire had burned down to barely glowing embers. Sky had lightened to its morning variation of gloom, yellow-gray, and oppressive. Kaylin was crouched at camp's edge, his rifle still in her hands where it had been all night. Her body was coiled tight as a drawn bowstring, head tilted in universal posture of prey-sensing predator. "What?" he started, voice rough with sleep. She held up one hand sharply, cutting him off without looking back. Pointed with other hand toward Sky. Jake followed her gesture and felt his stomach drop. Descending through toxic haze was sleek black shuttle, its hull so dark it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No running lights, no identifying marks, no transponder beacon he could detect. It moved with predatory grace of something designed for violence, settling onto old landing pad 300 meters away, with barely a whisper of displaced air. "They found us," Kaylin whispered, and her voice carried layers of meaning. Fear, yes, but also resignation, recognition. This was something she'd been expecting, dreading, running from for a very long time. Jake pushed himself up, biting back groan as body protested every movement. "Who found us?" "Cleaners." She said it like curse, like word that tasted of poison. "Corporate kill teams. I've been avoiding them for 2 years, maybe longer. Time." She trailed off, shook head. "Time is strange here." The shuttle's ramp descended with hydraulic precision. 5 figures emerged, moving with synchronized efficiency of professional soldiers. They wore state-of-the-art combat armor, matte black with active camouflage that made their edges blur and shift. Each carried weapons that made Jake's service rifle look like historical curiosity. Pulse rifles with integrated targeting, probably linked to helmet displays. Kaylin was already moving, gathering her makeshift weapons, checking her repaired armor. Her hands moved with new purpose, new focus. Some wildness had left her eyes, replaced by something colder, more calculating, more dangerous. "We need to go," she said urgently. "Now, right now." Jake grabbed his pack, forced legs to cooperate despite reluctance. "Why? What do they want?" She looked at him, and in that look was 5 years of running, hiding, surviving against impossible odds. 5 years of being hunted. "Me. They want me. They've always wanted me. Why?" "Later. Move." They moved through ruins, keeping low, using wreckage for cover. Jake's chest burned with every step, vision swimming at edges. He could hear Kaylin ahead, her movements nearly silent despite debris field. She'd learned this place intimately, had mapped it through years of desperate survival. She knew every path, every hiding place, every route that might keep them alive another hour. Behind them, voices echoed through dead spaces, cleaners spreading out, beginning search pattern, professional, methodical, patient. Kaylin led them to what had been transport hangar. Walls collapsed inward from bombardment, creating labyrinth of twisted metal and shattered concrete. She pulled Jake into space behind fallen support beam, pressing finger to lips in universal gesture for silence. Voices grew closer, then cutting through them with electronic clarity, new sound, high-pitched whine of scanning equipment. Jake risked glance through gap in metal. One of cleaners had stopped 30 meters from their position. Soldier held device that painted ruins in pale blue light, sweeping it back and forth in methodical search pattern. Device hummed and clicked, processing data, searching for biosignatures in dead landscape. Soldier's filtered voice carried clearly in thin air. "Biosignature confirmed. Target Echo is still on planet. Signal strength indicates close proximity." Jake felt Kaylin stiffen beside him, her entire body going rigid. Echo, her call sign. They knew who she was, what she was. They'd come specifically for her. Another voice responded through comm system, deeper, carrying command authority. "Capture status?" Soldier adjusted scanner. Command's orders remain unchanged. Target Echo. Alive or dead? Dead is preferred. She has classified information about Xylos operations. Elimination is priority 1. Jake turned to look at Kaylin. Her face had gone pale, making blue of her skin almost gray. For first time since he'd found her, he saw naked fear in her eyes. Not fear of immediate physical danger, something deeper. Existential terror. Fear of someone who suddenly understands they've been running from something inevitable, and it's finally caught up. She looked at him, and her expression was silent, desperate plea. Her hand found his arm, gripped it hard enough to hurt. She was no longer feral beast of this dead world. She was soldier, person, target, and she knew with complete certainty that her time was running out. Soldier moved closer, scanner sweeping their position. Jake could hear device's high-pitched whine getting louder. They had maybe 30 seconds before it detected them. His hand moved to sidearm. 5 soldiers, state-of-the-art armor, superior weapons. He was dying, barely able to stand. She was half feral, armed with scrap metal. Math was simple and brutal, but math had never been Phantom Squad's strong suit. Jake met Kaylin's eyes and saw something that hadn't been there before. Recognition. Not of him, not specifically, but of what he represented. Possibility that she wasn't alone. That someone would stand with her instead of running. That after 5 years of being hunted, she had an ally. He nodded once, pulled rifle from her hands. She let him take it, understanding passing between them without words. Check charge. When I move, he whispered, barely audible. You go left, stay in cover. Draw them away from me. Use narrow spaces. You can't not debate, Echo. That's an order. Something flickered across her face at the call sign. Not quite memory, but ghost of it. Muscle memory of being part of unit, of following commands, of trusting your squad. Scanner's whine grew louder. Soldier was almost on top of them now. Jake counted down in his head. 3, 2, 1. He erupted from cover, rifle up, and fired burst at nearest cleaner. Rounds sparked off Soldier's armor, but forced him to dive for cover. Jake kept firing, suppressing, giving Kaylin openings she needed. She moved like water, flowing left through wreckage, silent and fast. 2 cleaners tracked her movement and gave chase. Other 3 focused on Jake. He was already moving, using every trick learned in 2 decades of combat. Fire and move. Never stay still. Use terrain. Make them waste ammunition on bad angles. But body wasn't cooperating. Each movement slower than it should be. Each breath came harder. Pulse round cracked past his head, so close he felt heat. Jake dove behind collapsed wall, landing jarring something loose in chest. He tasted blood. Not good. He was running on borrowed time, and loan was coming due. Target acquired, Section 7, voice shouted. Jake leaned around corner and fired 3 quick shots. One caught cleaner in leg joint where armor was thinner. Soldier went down with curse, clutching leg. 4 left. Sound of weapons fire echoed from Kaylin's direction. She was keeping them busy, staying mobile. Jake used distraction to move to better position, forcing legs to carry him up pile of rubble to higher ground. Each step felt like climbing mountain. From new vantage, he could see tactical situation. It was bad. Cleaners were too good, too well equipped. They were boxing them in, using textbook pursuit tactics. In maybe 5 minutes, they'd have both of them cornered with no way out. Then Jake saw Cleaner Commander, one who'd given dead preferred order. He was hanging back, coordinating from position near shuttle, his helmet off to better hear comm chatter. Stupid mistake. Kind of mistake officers made when they thought they were safe. Jake's rifle had 1 charge pack left. He checked range. 300 meters, open shot, but hands were shaking and vision kept tunneling. Shot he could have made in his sleep 5 years ago. Now it was gamble. He took it anyway. Round caught Commander in shoulder, spinning him around. Not kill shot, but enough to take him out of fight. Enough to sow confusion. Commander down, someone shouted through comms. Jake allowed himself grim smile. Then he heard sound behind him. Scrape of boot on metal. He spun, rifle coming around, but too slow. Cleaner had flanked him, was raising weapon. Jake saw muzzle, saw a finger tightening on trigger, and knew he wouldn't be fast enough. Soldier's head snapped aside as Kaylin's blade punched through weak point in neck armor. She'd come back. She'd heard shot, realized Jake was in trouble, and abandoned her own escape to save him. Cleaner collapsed. Kaylin pulled blade free, breathing hard. "You're terrible at following your own orders," she panted. "Learn from the best," Jake managed. They heard shouting. Remaining cleaners had realized where they were converging. No more time. Kaylin looked at him, at pale face and shaking hands. Made decision. She grabbed his arm, pulled it over shoulder, took half his weight. "Where?" Jake started. "Old command bunker. 200 meters. Can you make it?" "No." "Try anyway." They moved together, half running, half stumbling through ruins. Jake could hear pursuit behind them, heavy footfalls of armored soldiers who didn't need to pace themselves. Vision was narrowing to tunnel. Legs were giving out. Only Kaylin's strength kept him upright. Bunker entrance appeared ahead, dark mouth in rubble. Kaylin dragged him inside just as pulse rounds started impacting around them, throwing up clouds of vaporized concrete and ash. Inside was darkness and smell of old explosives, burnt wiring, human decay. Kaylin didn't stop at entrance, pulling him deeper into structure, navigating by memory through corridors that had partially collapsed during bombardment. Finally, she turned into what had been command room and let him slide carefully down against wall. "Stay here," she said, checking blade, testing edge. "Where are you going?" She looked toward entrance, toward sound of approaching footsteps echoing through bunker's corridors. "They're coming in after us. Narrow corridors, close quarters. My advantage now." Jake grabbed her arm with what little strength he had left. "Kaylin, don't. It's Echo." She looked down at him, and something had changed in eyes, something cold and determined. "You remembered my call sign. You used it. That means something. That means I was someone once. Someone worth remembering. You still are." 5 years, she said, voice hard as metal around them. 5 years I've been running from them. They want me dead because I know what they did here. What really happened on Xylos. I'm done running, Jake. She moved toward entrance, blade ready, then paused, looked back. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for the armor, for the medkit, for not tying my hands while I was unconscious, for treating me like I was still human." Then she was gone, melting into shadows with practiced ease of someone who'd become part of darkness itself. Jake sat in dark, listening to his labored breathing, feeling heart stutter and skip beats. He'd come to Xylos to die, had accepted it, made peace with it. But now, sitting here while Kaylin went to fight his battle, he found he wasn't quite ready. Not yet. Not while she was still fighting. He checked weapons with trembling hands. Rifle, quarter charge remaining, maybe 15 rounds. Sidearm, fully charged, 40 rounds. 3 concussion grenades on belt, standard issue, old but functional. And he had one advantage cleaners didn't expect. He was already dead. That made him dangerous in ways they couldn't predict. Jake forced himself to stand. World tilted sickeningly, then settled into queasy stability. He could hear sounds from deeper in bunker. Shouts, weapons fire, distinctive clang of metal on metal. Kaylin was giving them hell. He moved toward sound, using wall for support. First cleaner he encountered was backing up through corridor, all attention focused forward where Kaylin was pressing aggressive attack. Jake shot him in back. Not honorable, not sporting, but war had never been about honor. Second cleaner turned at sound, weapon coming around fast. Jake's hand found concussion grenade, armed it, threw it in one smooth motion, born of muscle memory. In enclosed corridor, blast was devastating, slamming soldier into wall hard enough that advanced armor cracked with audible snap. Kaylin emerged from darkness ahead, blade dripping dark blood, face spattered with it. She saw Jake and opened mouth to order him back, then caught his expression and closed it. She nodded once, understanding passing between them without words. They moved forward together, deeper into bunker. Remaining cleaners, 2 left now, had barricaded themselves in bunker's central hub, large chamber with multiple entry points. Smart defensive tactics. But Jake knew this bunker. Had fought from it 5 years ago during battle, though Kalen didn't remember that yet. "There's maintenance shaft," Jake whispered, voice barely audible. "Comes out above them in ceiling, if it hasn't collapsed." Kalen's eyes narrowed, studying him with new intensity. "How do you know that?" "I'll tell you after. Can you climb?" She looked at injured shoulder, synth skin patch holding despite violence. Flexed fingers, testing range of motion. Pain crossed her face, but she nodded. "I can climb." Maintenance shaft was vertical tunnel, walls slick with 5 years of condensation and chemical runoff. Jake went first, each pull upward sending lightning through chest, through arms, through every dying cell and body. Vision grayed out twice, and only terror of falling kept him conscious and moving. Behind him, Kalen climbed in tense silence, ready to catch him if he fell. At top, corroded grate opened into ceiling of central hub. Through metal mesh, Jake could see 2 cleaners below, positioned in defensive perimeter covering all main entrances. Professional, disciplined, well-trained. But they'd made one fatal mistake. They'd forgotten to look up. Jake positioned his last concussion grenade carefully, armed it, set timer for 3 seconds. "Fire and hole," he breathed. He dropped it through grate. Explosion was physical hammer blow that Jake felt through metal shaft. Before blast had fully dissipated, before cleaners could recover from stunning concussion, Jake and Kalen dropped through opening. It wasn't fair fight. It wasn't meant to be. Kalen moved like death-given form, blade-finding armor gaps with precision of someone who'd spent years learning how to kill efficiently or die trying. Jake took careful shots, each round placed with decades of experience, conserving ammunition but not mercy. Cleaners tried to rally, tried to bring superior firepower to bear, but in close quarters against opponents who had nothing left to lose, all advantages evaporated like water on hot metal. 40 seconds. Over. Jake leaned heavily against wall, rifle hanging from fingers that barely had strength to hold it. Chest felt like someone had filled it with broken glass and fire. Each breath was conscious decision, choice to continue existing for one more moment. Kalen moved among bodies with cold efficiency, checking each one, making certain there were no survivors who could report back. She found comm unit on one soldier, pulled it free from mounting. Looked at it for a long moment, jaw working. Then she keyed transmit button. "This is Echo." Her voice carried weight that made Jake straighten despite agony. "You sent 5 soldiers to kill me. They're dead, all of them. Send more and they'll die the same way. Send 100 and I'll kill every single one." She paused, and when she spoke again, voice had dropped to something colder than void between stars. "But know this, I remember now. I remember what happened on Xylos, what you did here, what you covered up, and I'm coming for you, all of you." She crushed comm unit in hand, let pieces fall. Jake tried to speak, tried to say something meaningful, but words wouldn't form. Room was spinning now, tilting at angles that defied physics. He felt himself sliding down wall, legs giving out completely, no strength left to fight gravity. Kalen caught him before he hit ground, lowered him gently, cradling his head. "Stay with me," she said urgently. And there was something in voice that hadn't been there before. Not just desperation, but grief. Raw and real. "Jake, stay with me." "Can't." Word came out wet, bubbling. Timelines accelerated. Internal bleeding. The fighting finished it. "No." She pressed hands to his chest as if she could hold his life in through sheer will. "No, you don't get to do this. You came back for me. You found me. You saved me. You can't just leave now." Had to come back. Each word cost him everything. Had to know you survived. Had to help. Why? Tears were cutting clean tracks through grime and blood on blue face. "Why would you waste your last days on me? On this?" "Because you're Phantom Squad." Jake reached up with trembling hand, touched dog tag around her neck. Fingers barely had strength to lift it. "Because you're Echo. Because you were the best of us." He coughed, vision going dark at edges. "And because I couldn't save you the first time, but maybe this time." Darkness was closing in faster now, pulling him down into something that felt almost peaceful. But through it, he could see her face, could see something changing in eyes, recognition dawning like sunrise. Not just of him, but of everything. Memories flooding back, breaking through barriers mind had built to protect itself. Jake, his name broke in her throat. I remember. God, I remember everything. He smiled. It hurt, but it was worth it. Good. That's good. The ambush. You pushed me into that crater when the artillery hit. The explosion. I saw you go down. I thought you were dead. I thought... She couldn't finish, voice fracturing. Martinez evacuated you. You were supposed to live. You were supposed to go home. I did live, but I came back. Jake's breathing was shallow now, each breath weaker than last. I promised I'd find you. Kaylin gripped his hand hard enough to hurt, as if she could anchor him to life through physical contact alone. You can't die. Not now. I just got you back. I just remembered everything. You can't... Echo. He used her call sign like order, summoning what little command voice he had left. Listen to me. You know what they did here. You said you remember. Whatever it is, you have to stop them. Make them answer. For all of it. I can't do it alone. Yes, you can. You survived. 5 years on Dead World. Alone. Your strongest person I've ever known. His eyes were starting to lose focus, looking through her instead of at her. You're Phantom Squad, Echo. You always were. We're Phantom Squad. Both of us. Together. Jake's smile widened slightly, though blood flecked his lips. Yeah, we are. His voice was barely whisper now, fading like smoke. Did I at least get to cover your flank? One? Last time? And in that moment, as those words left his lips, something detonated in Kaylin's mind. Not just memory returning, full sensory recall. The ambush 5 years ago, crystal clear. Enemy fire tearing through their position. The scream of incoming artillery. Jake's eyes going wide as he saw the trajectory, saw where it would hit. His body moving before conscious thought, slamming into her, driving her down into the crater just as the world exploded into white-hot death. The pressure wave, the heat, the sound of everything ending. And through it all, through chaos and fire and certainty of death, his voice, the last thing she'd heard before darkness took her. Echo, live! The same voice, the same command. 5 years apart, but identical in every way that mattered. 2 moments, 2 sacrifices. Same man, same choice. The sound of it, his voice from the past overlaying his voice in the present, created harmonic that shattered something fundamental in her. The beast died. The warrior was reborn. Everything she'd been, everything she'd forgotten came flooding back in devastating wave. She wasn't just remembering, she was reliving, feeling it all over again. The terror, the gratitude, the guilt of surviving because he'd chosen to save her instead of himself. And now he'd done it again. Come back to this dead world not to die in peace, but to find her, to save her one more time. The sob that tore from Kaylin's chest was sound of pure anguish, raw, primal grief that came from somewhere deeper than words. You covered my flank, she choked out, tears streaming freely now. You saved my life, twice. You gave me back my mind. You gave me back myself. She couldn't finish, couldn't force any more words past grief blocking her throat. Then it was worth it. All of it. Jake's eyes were closing now, his voice fading to almost nothing. Every kilometer, every day, worth it. To find you, to know you made it. One final breath, shallow and slow. The mission's yours now, Echo. Make them burn. Make them pay for everything. For Phantom Squad. For all of it. His eyes closed. His breathing stopped. The hand Kaylin was holding went slack, becoming just weight without life. For a long moment, eternity compressed into seconds, she knelt there in darkness of bunker, holding hand of dead man who had crossed stars one final time just to save her. Who had used his last days, his last strength, his last breath to give her back her life. Then slowly, she lowered his hand to rest on chest, composed his body with careful reverence, closing his eyes, straightening his limbs, treating him with dignity he'd earned 1,000 times over. She reached down and unhooked his dog tags from around neck, metal still warm from contact with his skin, held them up next to her own. They clinked together softly in silence, sound like wind chimes made of memory and sacrifice. Kaylin draped both chains around her neck, 2 sets of tags now, one that said who she had been, one that said who she would become. She looked down at Jake's body one final time, memorizing his face in death, peaceful at last, free from pain and sickness and weight of broken promises finally kept. There was a small smile still on his lips, the smile of someone who had completed their mission, who had done what they came to do. "I'll finish it," she whispered into darkness, voice hard as steel. "I swear to you, Jake, I'll make them burn for everything, for Phantom Squad, for you, for everyone who died here while they buried truth. I'll make them remember that we don't die quiet, that we don't die easy, that Phantom Squad finishes the mission." She stood, picked up Jake's rifle, checked charge, collected remaining ammunition from dead cleaners, armed herself with their weapons, their grenades, their equipment, transformed herself from survivor into something more dangerous, soldier with mission and nothing left to lose. But she paused at Jake's body one more time, knelt down, unzipped his jacket and wrapped it carefully around him, tucking it close like blanket. Small gesture. Meaningless probably, but it felt important. He'd come back for her. Least she could do was make sure he looked like soldier, not casualty. "Rest easy, Lieutenant," she said softly, using his rank for first time since memories returned. "I've got the mission from here." Then she stood and walked toward bunker entrance, toward weak light filtering down from toxic sky. Her movements were different now, not feral crouch of prey, not desperate scramble of someone running. This was steady, purposeful stride of soldier who knew exactly what she had to do and exactly how far she was willing to go to do it. Behind her, Jake lay still in darkness, his face serene. He had come to this dead world to die in peace, and instead, with his last breath and his last act of selfless courage, he had awakened storm that would burn his enemies to ash. Cleaner Commander dragged himself across scorched landing pad, injured shoulder leaving trail of blood on ancient stone. His comm was dead. His entire team was dead. And somewhere in those ruins, Echo was alive. Not just alive, awakened, remembering, hunting. He could hear footsteps behind him, slow, deliberate, unhurried. Footsteps of someone who had all time in world. He rolled over with enormous effort, fumbling for sidearm with good hand. Fingers found grip, started to draw. Kaylin stood above him, silhouetted against poison sky. She held Jake's rifle in one hand like it weighed nothing. In other hand, she held 2 sets of dog tags that caught what little light filtered through haze. "Wait," Commander gasped, voice modulated by pain and fear. "Wait, we can negotiate. Whatever they're paying you to stay quiet, we can double it, triple it. Name your price." "They're not paying me anything." Kaylin's voice was empty of everything except purpose, cold as void. "I'm not doing this for money." "Then what?" "Revenge." He tried to sound reasonable, tried to find an angle that would work. "That won't bring your squad back, won't bring him back. You'll just be throwing your life away." "My life?" Kaylin's laugh was harsh, brittle thing. "I died 5 years ago on this rock. Everything since then has been borrowed time. Just took me until now to realize it." She knelt beside him, brought face close to his. Her eyes were eyes of someone who had died once and been reborn as something harder, something that understood suffering at fundamental level. "You're going to tell me everything," she said with absolute certainty. "Every name, every location, every classified detail about what really happened on Xylos, about what we discovered here that scared them so badly, about why they wanted Phantom Squad eliminated, about what Xylos really was before you turned it into graveyard." "I don't know what you're talking about." Kaylin's hand moved faster than he could track, blade appearing at his throat. Not cutting, just pressing, just promising. "Don't. Her voice dropped to whisper, "Don't insult me. Don't insult Jake's memory. I remember now. I remember what we found, what we reported, and I remember how quickly they moved to silence us. So don't lie to me, Commander. Not unless you want to find out exactly how much pain human nervous system can process before it shuts down completely." Commander looked into her eyes and saw his own death reflected there in brutal detail. Saw a storm that Jake had unleashed with his sacrifice. Saw reckoning that was coming for everyone who had covered up truth about Xylos. And he understood, with terrible crystalline clarity, that Echo hadn't just survived this dead world. She had become its avatar, its instrument, its judgment. "Okay," he whispered, resistance crumbling. "Okay, I'll talk. Just, please." "You'll talk," Kalen agreed. "You'll tell me everything. And if you're smart, you'll tell me truth. Because I'll know if you're lying. I spent 5 years learning to read people who wanted to kill me. I know fear, I know deception, and I know exactly how to separate one from other." She pulled him roughly to sitting position. "But first, let me explain something. That man in there?" She gestured toward Bunker. "Jake? He came here to die. He had 3 months left, maybe less. Radiation sickness from last battle here. He could have spent those months comfortable, pain-free. Instead, he used them to find me, to save me, to give me back my life." Her grip on Commander's armor tightened. "So when I tell you I'm going to make everyone responsible pay, understand that I'm not talking about quick execution. I'm talking about justice. Real justice. The kind that makes examples. The kind that ensures this never happens again." She hauled him to his feet, steadied him despite his injuries. Behind them, ruins of Xylos stretched out in all directions. Graveyard of metal and ash and old betrayals. Somewhere in those ruins, Jake lay in peaceful darkness, his final mission complete, his promise kept. Kalen adjusted dog tags around neck, feeling their weight settle against chest, feeling responsibility they represented, debt that could never be repaid, only honored. "Come on," she said, starting to walk towards shuttle, dragging Commander with her. "We have a long journey ahead. You're going to tell me everything, every detail, every name, every location, and then you're going to take me to people who gave orders. And when I'm done with them, I'll move to next names and next, until everyone who had hand in this answers for it." "They'll kill you," Commander said weakly. "You're one person, their entire corporation, with resources, with armies, with..." "I'm not one person." Kalen looked down at dog tags. "I'm Phantom Squad, and we finished the mission. Always." She looked back once more at Bunker where Jake had died saving her. At place where, through his sacrifice, she had been reborn with purpose and clarity and rage that would burn like star. "I'll make them burn," she whispered again, words becoming mantra, prayer, promise carved into her soul. "For Phantom Squad, for Jake, for Martinez and Chen and Reeves and every other soldier who died here while you buried truth. I'll make them all burn until there's nothing left but ash and memory and warning to anyone who thinks they can do this again." Then she turned away from Graveyard of Stars and began long walk toward vengeance, dragging Commander behind her toward shuttle that would take her off this dead world and into heart of enemy territory. Wind howled through ruins, carrying ash and memory across dead landscape. Twin moons rose higher in their eternal dance, casting cold light on world that had witnessed too much death, too much sacrifice, too much truth buried under corporate lies. But in that light, something new moved. Not prey, not survivor, but hunter with nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. Echo was no longer running from past. Echo was coming for future. And somewhere behind her, in darkness of collapsed bunker on dead world at edge of known space, Jake's last smile remained on his still face. Smile of man who had completed his final mission, who had come to die in peace and had instead, with his last breath and his last act of selfless courage, given life to reckoning that would shake foundations of corporate powers that thought they could bury truth forever. He had come to Graveyard of Stars to find peace in death. Instead, he had awakened storm, and that storm had name, had purpose, had direction. That storm was Echo, and Echo was coming.